And welcome to our nightly meditation practice. Um, I just finished my weekly Zen practice, um, and it now runs till 9:30, so then my normal start time. Um, so this is a little bit delayed from normal, but I'm sorry, on Thursdays this will probably become the norm, as will on Tuesdays when I sit with the Riverside Zen Center. So anyway, I welcome you tonight, and as we do each night, we will begin by paying homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Again, thank you for joining me tonight. Um, in my Zen class tonight, my Zen practice tonight, um, my Zen master, Master Miyoto, uh, talked about attachment, talked about suffering, um, and it occurred to me, and I shared with them the story of Kisa Gotami, as I was sharing that yesterday with Mason in the car. Um, a little bit about parents being overly attached, about grief, uh, about learning to handle grief, and about understanding suffering. Um, and so I raised the story tonight after, in the comment period, uh, about suffering and about attachment of parents, and um, but I just gave a 2-minute story of Kisa Gotami. And I knew there was a website that had a good synopsis of it. So I pulled it up before tonight so that I could share that with you guys here. And so I'm going to share that and read that to you. I love the story of Kisa Gotami. Um, it's very touching as a parent, um, but it, it just screams true about um, the nature of life. So, if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'll share that with you, and I hope that it's a story that you can all enjoy and appreciate. So, this is a synopsis of the story. The story's been handed down um, through oral and written tradition for many, many years. But Kisa Gotami was actually a fully enlightened being who became a nun some years after this particular story happened. So it goes like this. This is what we've been told ever since she was a little child. Gotami was much thinner than the other girls, and as a result, she had to put up with the insulting nickname Kisa Gotami, or Skinny Gotami. And then, on top of that, when she got married, her husband treated her badly. So it was only when she bore a child that at last people started to treat her with some respect. At last, it seemed, she was to have some happiness in her life. However, just when her little boy was old enough to begin to run about and play, he became ill and died. At this point, remembering how much she had always been insulted before her little boy was born, Gotami became almost crazy with sorrow, and she refused to believe that he was dead. She took the little corpse from house to house, asking for medicine to cure her child. Why are you asking for medicine? Everyone said. Can't you see that the child is dead? You are crazy. But one of her neighbors, wiser and more kindly than the others, realized that Gotami's strange behavior was due to the depth of her sorrow and said, Why don't you go to the Buddha? Perhaps he can give you the medicine you need. So she took the dead body of her little boy, showed it to the Buddha, and said, Please, O wise one, give me some medicine for my poor sick child. The Buddha looked at Gotami and at the little dead body, and he could see that deep down Gotami had enough wisdom and strength to understand her sorrow and gain comfort, even though her terrible loss had made her almost mad with grief. So he said to her, Go back to the town, knock on all the doors, And wherever you find a household where no one has died, ask them to give you a little mustard seed. Then, in the evening, bring me all the mustard seed you collect, and we will be able to make some medicine for your child." So Gautami went into the town, still carrying the dead body of her little boy, knocked on the door of the first house, and said, "If no one has died in your family, please give me some mustard seed. I need it as a medicine for my sick child." The woman of the house looked at her sadly and said, "Certainly I can give you some mustard seed, but I'm afraid that we have had many, many deaths in our family." And Gautami looked sadly at the woman, saying, "In that case, I am sorry for you, but your mustard seed will be of no use as medicine for my little boy." She went to the second house, and the same thing happened. Yes, she could have some mustard seed, but in that house there had also been many deaths and much sorrow. And at the third, fourth, and fifth house it was the same. At every house where she knocked at the door, the family told her that they were in sorrow for the death of a dearly loved relative, a mother or a father or an uncle or an aunt or a son or a daughter. So by the evening, she still had no mustard seed for the medicine for her child. However, something important had happened. As a result of sharing her sorrow with so many other people who had also lost a loved one, she found that her own sorrow was now different. No longer did she feel agonized and almost mad with grief. Instead, although she still felt sorrow at the loss of her child, she also knew that there were many others in the town who had also experienced a similar loss and the same terrible sorrow. Suddenly she realized that sorrow and death are part of how life is, not only for her, but for everyone. So she took her dead child to the cemetery outside the town and sadly, lovingly, buried his little body. Then she went back to the Buddha, who asked, "Well, Gautami, have you got me the mustard seed for the medicine?" Gautami answered, "Thank you, O wise one. No, I have not brought any mustard seed, but your medicine of the mustard seed has already worked, as you know it would, because I now see that my own sorrow is part of the sorrow of all people, and that the death of our loved ones is part of the pattern of our life for everyone. That is the medicine I needed, and that is what you have helped me to understand." And from that time onwards, Gautami became one of the wisest and most respected followers of the Buddha. She became famous for her sad and beautiful on the sufferings of women caused by the pains of giving birth, the difficulties of marriage, the deaths of husbands, and particularly the deaths of children. A few weeks ago, I shared that story. Not that story. I shared with those of you here who have watched um, the Gotami Sutta. And in the Gotami Sutta, she was meditating, and Mara came to her and tried to distract her. And she says, "Who's that talking to me? There's nobody here. There is no self. And she clearly understood that those doubts that were coming into her mind when she was meditating were not herself. And they were not, um, all they were was indications of, of not self. And she recognized that she in her wisdom, and at that Mara had given up and said, "This woman's on to me. She knows what's going on. She's figured it all out." And Mara left, and she was able to continue and abide in her meditation. So again, I shared that a few weeks ago, but that's in the Samyutta Nikaya. If you're interested in the Gotami Sutta, um, you can just Google Gotami Sutta, um, and uh, and you'll see that in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's a great story. Um, And as was mentioned in that little on that website about the story of Kisa Gotami, there are many poems in the Therigatha, or the gathas, the poems of um, the great female elders of the Theravada tradition. So anyway, there are some great gathas in there from Gotami, and great stories. But I always loved that story of Kisa Gotami, um, and what it teaches us about suffering, what it teaches us about understanding the nature of human condition. Um, and as a bodhisattva in training, how we want to help alleviate that suffering from other people. So, I encourage you um, to take heed of that. I had originally thought about Kisa Gotami earlier tonight. Um, it's the uh, it's the birthday of my sister's son, um, and he passed away when he was 17. He would have been 26 today, and obviously, it's the death of a child is hard for any parent. Um, and this one was particularly difficult for my sister because of the circumstances of his death and her role trying to revive him. So, um, you know, I I love my sister and I feel for her. I see the pain that she's going through, and she has gone through for many years. And she she has gained wisdom in her struggles to grieve and overcome. Um, and I hope that one day she will gain that depth of wisdom that Kisa Gotami has gained, uh, and that she can find her enlightenment too, as Kisa Gotami did. Um, anyway, that is my prayer and my well wish for my sister Sally as she uh, both celebrates and laments the birthday of her son. So anyway, so with that, we will meditate tonight. We just had a rather about a 20-minute long meditation with our single flowers in. So we'll just do 20 minutes now, and then we will end with the reading of the bodhicitta prayer as we always do. So if you would allow me to begin our meditation with the following of the bells, um, then I will see you at the conclusion of our meditation practice. Thank you for meditating with me. There's my householder Zen teacher behind me. And as we do each night, we will end with the recitation of the uh, bodhicitta prayer. The bodhicitta prayer. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Again, thank you very much for meditating with me tonight, and I hope you'll join me again tomorrow night. Have a good evening.